What's good, YouTube? It's me, your boy SQUIDDY, back in another SQUIDDY. YCS Richmond just completed over the course of this weekend, and actually, we discovered that the format was nowhere near solved. People were saying, oh, you know, this format is bad, it's diverse, so on and so forth. I mean, it is still diverse, but it looks like it's kind of evolving towards a solved meta. And previously, what we had at YCS Indy, as well as YCS Bolivia, were just snapshots of the beginning of the format. Because in this event specifically, we saw a lot of cool tech options, and people are now gearing towards beating the wide array decks that are out there. And here are some cards that were very popular throughout the course of this weekend that we should definitely look at so you guys know what to prepare for, as well as what you should be playing in order to be winning this format. Shameless plug. So really quickly, guys, I've actually launched an online site to provide you guys with some awesome anime-inspired merch with designs that I've actually hand-drawn myself. And together with my good friend who's a coding genius, we actually built this site from the ground up. These t-shirts are actually quite comfy. They are 100% cotton. We made absolutely sure that they were of good material. We also have long sleeve sweaters that are equally as comfy, as well as some stickers to bling out your deck box. So if you guys want to upgrade your drip, as well as support the channel, definitely check out the site. I've left the link below in the description. Other than that, let's get back to this video. So starting at the top, this card was actually played in basically almost every round of the feature match. It seems a lot of players were either main decking or side decking this card because of how versatile it was, and that card was actually Super Polymerization. This card is obviously the nuts going first and second. Going first, you have some mild disruption at the cost of discarding a card from your hand, which is easy when, you know, decks just have infinite advantage nowadays that snowball if you're going first. Going second is great for cracking boards, and the fact that there's so much versatility in the fusions, as well as how the decks kind of play their boards into this card specifically, makes it very, very nice to have. I mean, you can go into Garura with decks like Rescue Ace running around where they're all fire machines, or you can go into, even against like Flunderies, you know, you can still go into Garura using 2 winged beasts with different names. And of course, there's also the Dragon Knight Draco E-Quest, which is very, very powerful because it requires 1 Dragon Synchro monster as well as the Warrior monster. So that's very easy with Baron de Fleur alongside the Dissipator, which a lot of Vanadium boards are actually putting up. So this is just an easy way to get rid of those 2 strong, powerful Omni-Negates, as well as putting a Draco E-Quest onto the board, which has an amazing effect where you can banish a Dragon Synchro monster from the graveyard, including your opponent's Dissipator, copy that effect, resurrect that same banished Dissipator, and continue to play with an insane board. So it's just really, really cool how Super Polymerization has that application, but the thing that really surprised me was the fact that there was another fusion monster that we did not anticipate, which is Guilty Gearfried, the Magical Steel Knight. This card has gone overnight from $2 to about $15, which is nuts. This card requires 2 warrior monsters with different attributes, and because a lot of the decks are going to Baron de Fleur as your default, Omni-Negate, as well as SP Little Knight being so easy to make, it's just really, really easy to Super Polymerization and make Guilty Gearfried, which requires 2 warrior monsters with different attributes, aka a Wind Baron de Fleur as well as a Dark SP Little Knight. So yeah, Super Poly is definitely a popular card in this format. It's a very, very high impact board breaker that doesn't have a lot of drawbacks besides the discard, besides people playing around it, of course. So if you are going to play in tournaments, definitely play around this card, but also see if you can incorporate it into your deck, because this card is actually quite good in my opinion. In terms of hand traps, we had a plethora, but it seems like finally we're trending back towards actually playing a lot of hand traps as opposed to the micro little format before Agov, where people were playing mostly board breakers for Unchained specifically. And Troll Knockbird seems to have picked up an extreme popularity in the side decks and also the main decks at YCS Richmond, because it's just universally decent at the very minimum against the wide span of decks, right? It's not absolutely awful, but it's not always good against all the decks. Against Rescue Ace, sometimes it's just bad. But that being said, it's still good. And then the good decks that it's good, very, very powerful against, like Vanadium, it just does a lot, right? So having this card is very, very important. People are still playing Infinite Impermanence, as well as a trend towards Effect Veiler. Effect Veiler being very, very nice. Again, against a diverse format, this card does a lot. And when you play a lot of hand traps, Effect Veiler is very, very nicely paired with other hand traps, right? This is kind of the card that either stops your opponent's starter or cleans up your opponent's plays as they're trying to whittle back in the grind game. So this is just a very, very popular card. And I've seen it used a lot against Rescue Ace as well, you know, to stop the turbulence. Very, very important. People are, of course, side decking and also main decking Nibiru because they realize, hey, you know, decks like Tier Limits are actually playing into the Nibiru now because they're playing the Horus engine. Horus seems to have picked up in Steam, and it's the new popular engine for Tier Limits. Every player that top basically played Horus in their Tier Limits deck, as far as I'm aware. So you know, having these cards play directly into Nibiru is quite nice because they're going to make the zombie vampire and trying to mill 4 cards. So, you know, having the Nibs always live, it's not going to be omni-negated unless they're able to make it Baron to Fleur first, which is quite rare. Now, DD Crow was also another hand trap that surprised me. I see a lot of people actually citing this card. It, again, has universal utility against everything. It's just a very, very nice application there. You know, even against, like, Tearlaments, you get to banish something. Even against decks like Unchained, sometimes you get some value. Banishing the target for Sarama or banishing the Yama or, you know, even using it as your 6th card drawn. It's just a very, very effective card. So, very, very nice to see these hand traps being dominant and coming out on top. Other cards that were kind of neat were Mistaken Arrest. We saw what happened in the top 4 feature match where Crystal Blanc was playing the eventual winner, Joseph, and Joseph flipped Mistaken Arrest on the Pyrrhely's player's turn, and then, you know, like, literally Chris couldn't do anything because all of his cards said that he had to add. He had a Pure Lily, he had I think it was like a field spell and a copy of My Friend. You know, if he had a quick play spell card, things might have gone a little bit differently, but this card is just so darn good because you don't have to shotgun it right away. You can chain it directly to something that your opponent activates. For example, Pot of Prosperity. This is a 1-for-1 trade on top of shutting them down for the rest of the turn. They're not going to be doing any adding. So this card, in fact, is quite good going first against a diverse array of decks. Basically every deck right now, you could just flip it in response to something. So even if they don't have any other cards that are searching for that turn, we're still getting a 1-for-1 value out of that by stopping a Pot of Prosperity or something along the lines. So very, very nice seeing this card just putting in so much work. Again, I hate blanket card effects in Yu-Gi-Oh! I think this should all be banned, so this is no exception. This card is absolutely nuts. If you guys aren't playing this, definitely something to consider going first and playing. KASHTIRA FENRIR seems like we're finally starting to pick up a little more popularity. It obviously dropped and plummeted off the face of the earth for the past couple of events, but I see a lot of good players that top this event still talking about the impact of FENRIR. People are even playing it. You know, Pac was playing it in his Infernoble deck, and then other players were actually playing this even in Rescue Ace. You know, like diverse decks can take advantage of FENRIR. It's one of the only monsters in the game where you summon it and your opponent goes, thinking, you know? Like, up one monster being special summoned, main phase, special FENRIR, and your opponent thinks. This is a card that makes people think because it does so much for the game, especially in a grind game situation, drawing this and, you know, just like starting to banish things and also replacing himself with another copy of himself. Just a very, very nice card, and I think this card is still very, very high impact. It'll probably get hit sooner or later on the ban list eventually, but I think it's definitely something that you guys can consider playing if you have the space for non-engine, because it pairs very well with hand traps, whittling down the game state to a grindy, simplified game state, and then FENRIR just comes out on top and shines. And then the last card that I thought was quite neat was CROSSOUT Designator. A lot of players are actually playing this, especially in the more combo-heavy decks. We saw Pac kind of side decking this card for going first, but also for going second, and they were actually siding a copy of Purely Leap. So against Purely, suddenly CROSSOUT Designator becomes non-engine because most of the time Purely players are going to be ending with the Yeep combo because it's very hard for them to establish the next Purely Nor on their turn unless they open the Absolute Stones. So having the CROSSOUT to actually cross out the Yeep is huge, on top of, you know, potentially crossing out any hand traps in the event that they don't set Yeep. So this card has so much utility, and there's so many non-conventional ways to actually take advantage of this and hit the cards that are problematic in the format. Obviously, there's a cost of playing bricks if you want to play cards like Purely Yeep, but because everyone's playing hand traps again, I think this card is very, very nice to have. They basically always have a board backed by hand traps, and this is just a very cool card to stop things going second, and then also stop things going first, like hand traps. So yeah, that's all I thought. The cool things that I saw in the future matches in YCS Richmond, as well as the deck profiles. If you guys think we actually missed anything, let us know in the comments below, because I'm really curious to see how this format is shaping up. There's so many cool different things that you would not have expected in the previous events, but now it seems like the events are kind of like the decks. The format is evolving, the decks are kind of changing, and it's really, really going to be interesting to see what happens in the YCS upcoming in Europe. So yeah, other than that, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for tuning in.